Hello, my readers and writers. Why don't you take a minute, relax, and listen to this gonzo story I wrote? The buses here in Anchorage are very clean and run on time. That said, there are many things that really upset me about them. The most irritating thing is that you can't tell what buses serve a bus stop until you are standing at the bus stop. There is a single page behind plexiglass written in about 8-point font. The guy feels a lot better if he knows the bus stop he's heading to is going to the bus garage or away from the garage. There are cheap solutions to this easily fixable problem. Why would one human ever allow something this easily fixed to continue? So I'm on the very clean bus here in Anchorage, and there's an extremely loud, crazy dude who gets fixated on my beard. Now, we all know I do have a fantastic beard. You can roll your eyes. But it probably was a combination of the beard and the shirt I was wearing. Before getting on the bus, I had taken my right thumb and index finger and wrapped it around the circular can of Copenhagen straight long cut chewing tobacco I had taken from my back pocket. Relaxing my pointer finger completely, I whipped my hands so that my pointer finger thumped the can, thus packing the chew. I took a big pinch. It looks like this. Took a big pinch and put it between my right upper canines and right over here. This is called an upper decker. If this is grossing you out, let's not talk of that. But really, why not? I did not realize I was going to have to deal with a deranged, slurring individual fixated on the cherished friend of my face when I got on the bus. I am relegated to simple grunts as I do not gut my chew. He eventually grows bored with the grunting, closed-mouthed, awesomely bearded, you can roll your eyes again, guy, and ends up focusing on this very attractive Hispanic woman who looked to be in her early 20s. The crazy dude is getting more and more verbally aggressive. She is getting more and more visibly upset. I end up swallowing my chewing tobacco with a course of action decided. I'm thinking to myself, I am not a hero. I am not a hero. I am not a hero. Rats, rats, rats. And then But first, let me explain something to you about rats. In Portland, it seemed like the people went to bed at about 9 p.m. The rats came awake around 9:30, even in the nice parts of town. Heck, especially in the nice parts of town by the river. One of my favorite spots to read in Portland was this little park called Jameson Square. It's a little half-acre reading oasis amidst an urban landscape. The park even had a nice water fountain that did a good job blanking out the urban sounds. I would usually get there around 7 p.m. and often read until after midnight. The rats never came anywhere near me, but you could hear them moving around in the dark. Fountain stopped. The only sound to fill the night was the scurrying and scratches of the undesirable and rarely remembered rodents. Being the farm boy that I am, I evaluated the rats when I saw them, which was quite often, so I was usually very still and intent upon my book. The rats were noticeably larger and healthier than most rats I have seen. For being in the middle of a city, there really weren't many of them. My previous experience with rats had largely been when cleaning corn cribs when I lived back in Iowa. We had to take duct tape and wrap it around our ankles so that the rats couldn't run up our pant legs. Yeah, you could always tell the noobs from the old timers because those with experience did a more extravagant job wrapping their ankles. As it really is amazing what a rat can gnaw through in a short amount of time. A grown man can also jump mighty high with a rat in his trousers. Well, if that gives you the heebie-jeebies, just hold on. I can do better. The scene is a building just off to the side of the Burnside Bridge in Portland, overlooking a large abandoned lot. When I was homeless in Portland, I got invited to go to the top of this building by other homeless people to watch, and I quote, the greatest show on earth. Not one to shy from an adventure, obviously. I agreed. So there we are on top of the building, and my friends have this garbage bag of old moldy bread. What's that for? I ask as they take a loaf out, tearing it in half and throwing both pieces off the side of the building. I am told to wait for it. Starts off as just a slight rumble, and then turned into a cacophony of screeching as this bread was devoured by a fractangular, that's my word, army of rats. I am thinking to myself that I am not okay with this. Then one of my friends says, "You throw little pieces is even more fun." Then starts throwing little pieces of bread off the side of the building. The sound quickly changed its pitch drastically as the rats began fighting over the bread. Quickly realizing that always being up for adventure sometimes sucks. Trying to figure out an excuse to get anywhere but on that roof. My thoughts are interrupted as someone shouted at what we thought was us, "Jump! Do it! Jump!" The person wasn't yelling this up at us. He wasn't even looking at us. Rather, they were looking at the Burnside Bridge, as were about 1,000 other people. A guy was where he shouldn't be, poised to jump to his death on the Max tracks far below him. The Max is Portland's above-ground subway train. The guy yelling at this guy to jump would occasionally pepper his yells with racist slurs and, really bizarre conspiracy stuff. I was torn between yelling at this jerk on the street and yelling at the rat tormentors around me. But for whatever reason, I froze and did nothing. Shamed. My friends left me on top of that building, first and last time I hung out with that crowd, thankfully, and I ended up watching the whole drama for the better part of 2 hours. The police even brought in what I can only assume was a negotiator person. I don't know, just like in the movies. It ended well, as the guy came off the edge to be immediately very cuffed and very arrested. Just a thought, but how about a blanket, a cup of decaf coffee, and hey, talk to me, dude, who just tried to kill himself? But let us not talk of that. Fast forward to about a year later in Portland. I am sleeping in the house I am renting at about 4 a.m. I'm awoken by my phone that I had forgotten to silence. I immediately silenced it and go back to sleep. About 2 p.m. the next day, I finally get around to checking on my phone. I have a bunch of emails, a Facebook post, messenger IMs, missed calls, and text messages from my mother, who was frantically wanting to know if I was okay. An event had happened, and the news hadn't released the names yet. She said it sounded exactly like something I would do. Note to readers, I am not a hero. See, what had happened at one of the bus transit centers I frequented, 2 women who were wearing hijabs, I said that right, had been getting messed with by a homeless guy. 2 heroes, stepped up to the plate and tried to dissuade this individual. They were stabbed to death for doing the right thing. After calling my mom and assuring her I was okay, I Googled the story. To my utmost horror, I think I recognized the guy. I'm fairly, but not entirely sure that the guy who stabbed those heroes was the same dude who was yelling for the guy to jump. Maybe. This event dramatically changed the way people rode the buses in PDX, at least for a short time. Normally, you get on the bus and everyone, including myself, has headphones on. Noticeably, these headphones were gone for a little bit of time after this event. And though the headphones were gone, the Portland buses were noticeably quieter. Oh, don't get me wrong, the crazies were still there, but people gave them as much or more distance than as they could. More so than normal. I saw on several occasions a standard harmless, constantly switching between licking their own ear and elbow. Yeah, crazy person, sitting in the front of the bus, with normies all huddled in the back of the bus. I am ashamed to say that on 2 occasions, I was one of these people. Let us not talk of that. Slowly, things got back to normal on the bus. About a month after the Hollywood Transit Center incident, a good friend and I visited a historic cemetery in Portland, paying our respects to Portland's first residents and marveling at the monumental architecture. I found one headstone that had a ridiculous amount of the same family dying all in the same year. The headstones surrounding this headstone were not of the same family, but they did have the same year of death. Fascinated by this, I've taken a picture, and you can actually take a look at that on my blog, which is www.iowaog.com. After the cemetery, my friend and I had gone downtown to the food carts. We had done the walk and smell around the 4 city blocks of food carts, trying to decide what to eat. During this time, we had been hit up by a punk 19-year-old homeless guy for money 3 separate times. The guy was whacked out of his mind on meth, as was evidenced by the fact that he completed the 4-block circuit 3 times, 3 full times, in the space it took us to do 1 rotation. I finally decided on some tom yum soup, which for those unfamiliar, it looks like the bottom of a pond, but is delicious. I had just ordered and was handing my credit card to the food cart operator when she looks me right in the eye and says, "Your friend is a good man." Strange thing to say. I look behind me to see my buddy grappling with a homeless kid. I freeze up for what felt like an eternity, trying to figure out what to do. I finally make up my mind and grab them both by the collar and actually lifted the kid a little bit off the ground. Wow, adrenaline. I shake both of them a little, granted my friend a little less, and say, "It's all over. It's done. It's all over." Over and over. I've been in this situation a few times, especially when I worked as a bouncer. It was weird doing it off the clock. The guy finally takes off, and my buddy is very shook up. He is trying to explain to me that we need to get as far away as possible from this situation. And I'm trying to explain that I am sorry for taking so long to get involved. Really am. It was at this time I realized I don't have my credit card, and the soup vendor is yelling my name. I go to retrieve my credit card, and she tells me, "No charge." Cool. My buddy is still shook up, but he had ordered some food before the brawl happened, and he was waiting for that. A gyro vendor that looked like a drawing of an Italian immigrant stereotype, complete with Chef Boyardee hat, begins thanking my friend. And forgive me, I'll try to do this. "That guy, he comes around here all the time, and no one have a balls enough to give him a word for." My buddy gets his food and says we have to go. Now, I say, look at how the people are looking at you. You're a hero. To try to calm my buddy down, I remind him about the mystery of the headstone. The gyro guy hears us and says, in his heavy Italian accent, "That was the plague. That hit Portland in that year. That's why we don't exterminate rats. New York, they exterminate all the time. But not Portland. It is better and cheaper." 30 minutes, 2 free gyros later, my buddy and I are walking through Pioneer Square, about 5 blocks from where the incident happened, give or take. I decided to ask my buddy what made him fight the guy, thinking he'd better have a darn good reason. Sure enough, the guy tried to grab my buddy's money while he was putting his change back in his wallet. Pretty good reason. He begins to say he shouldn't have done what he did, reassuring me that I got involved in the fight right away. We've agreed to disagree on that point, when, as if on cue, a random panhandler who was sitting at Pioneer Square said, "That was awesome what you did to that guy, man." And Italian stereotype man was right. He was spot on. Through my amateur research and the help of some online friends, I have confirmed there was in fact an outbreak of rat-borne diseases in 1907. The response Portland had was very unique. Instead of mass extermination of rats, they focused on the behavior of humans, requiring stricter sorting of garbage laws and tighter containers for the aforementioned garbage. See, rats are actually really chill if they have enough space and not unlimited amounts of food. This is why the only place in Portland there are large groups of rats is down by the river. New York spends millions on pest control, but Portland has figured out that there are cheap solutions to this easily fixable problem. Back to the bus here in Anchorage. You were probably hoping I will talk about how I got verbally aggressive with this crazy dude. Maybe you're even hoping that I roughed him up. However, I had realized that there are cheap solutions to this easily fixable problem. Now, some guys can swallow or gut their chewing tobacco all the time. I'm not one of these guys. It is not that it hurts my stomach, but rather it gives me just terrible, nasty, gross, disgusting hiccups. So this is what I said to the guy. "Glad you like my beard, my fellow wizard. It lets me cast spells. I am the greatest wizard ever, Fizz-Tandantlus of the first house of Menzoberranzan, ushered into the third age of Teleria by the coming of the cataclysm of Takhisis, first of her name. I say every third word punctuated by a hiccup, making me sound even more ridiculous. Yeah, the man was focused on me the rest of the time. See, I didn't need to rough the guy up, because there are cheap solutions to this easily fixable problem. I am no hero. My buddy really isn't a hero. The two gentlemen that died at the Hollywood Transit Center, they are heroes. But none of us really should have been in the positions we were in. Mental health is an epidemic in this country. The boy who attacked us at the food carts, the man who murdered those two heroes at the Hollywood Transit Center, and possibly yelled for another man to jump to his death, and the crazy dude on the bus with me, should have the biggest decision of their day be whether they want vanilla or chocolate pudding pops while staying in a room with padding. They are a danger to themselves and society. But let us not talk of that. Look, if you don't talk about people you see who are mentally ill, they don't exist, right? Are there no workhouses? Are there no prisons? Starbucks is hiring, and food stamps buy unlimited lobster. If you're looking for the perfect solution for me, it's not coming. I only know that with discussion of the issue, by conversing about it, and bringing attention to it, by thinking outside the box like Portland did with its rat problem, maybe, just maybe, we can figure out that there are cheap solutions to this easily fixable problem. Why would one human ever allow something like this, something this easily fixed, to continue? Let us talk of that. Well, thank you for listening to my story. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Until next time, I know I'll be writing on, and I hope you do it too. You're right on when you're writing on.